ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar, my dear friends. This is the first video on the teachings of Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti. Lord Kapila was the son of sage Kardam and Devahuti. Whereas philosophy in the West germinates most often in the soil of intellectual curiosity and is highly theoretical, being concerned with knowledge for its own sake. Philosophy in the ancient Vedic tradition of India is very pointedly directed towards the avowedly practical goal of human liberation. The conviction that human life is specifically meant for discovering and applying the proper means for the liberation of the self from matter is the sine qua non of India's traditional spiritual thought and culture. This book is based on a unique series of lectures on the teachings of Kapila Muni, Kapila Deva, presented in Bombay, India in the spring of 1974 by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Kapila Muni, a renowned sage of antiquity, is the author of the Samkhya philosophical system. Samkhya, which forms an important part of India's ancient philosophical heritage, is both a system of metaphysics and a system of spiritual knowledge, culminating in liberation. Kapila, however, is not an ordinary philosopher or sage. According to Vedic tradition, he is an avatara, incarnation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Lord Sri Krishna. Lord Kapila descended as the son of Kardam Muni and his wife Devahuti, both of whom were great yogis and saints. After Kardam Muni renounced the world and went to the forest to attain spiritual perfection, Devahuti, aware of the divinity of her son, approached Kapila and implored him to endow her spiritual enlightenment. Pleased by his mother's sincere desire for transcendental knowledge, Kapila spoke Sankhya philosophy, the philosophy which leads one to discriminate between matter and spirit and which culminates in the ultimate liberation called bhakti, divine love. In this book, the author gives a brilliant exposition on the basic teachings of Kapila and thus illuminates a major element in traditional Indian spirituality. Topics discussed include the significance of the Guru, the psychology of consciousness, the characteristics of self-realized person, the science of meditation, the nature of transcendental knowledge, and the process of ultimate liberation. Through his voluminous writings, which constitute a veritable library of Vedic philosophy, religion, literature, and culture, Srila Prabhupada has distinguished distinguished himself as the greatest contemporary teacher of Vedic philosophy and religion. This volume represents another valuable contribution by Srila Prabhupada to our increasing understanding of the profound and universal principles of Vedic wisdom. Kapila Muni, a renowned sage of antiquity, is the author of the philosophical system known as Sankhya, which forms an important part of India's ancient philosophical heritage. Sankhya is both a system of metaphysics dealing with the elemental principles of the physical universe and a system of spiritual knowledge with its own methodology culminating in full consciousness of the Supreme Absolute. Kapila, however, is not an ordinary philosopher or sage. According to Vedic tradition, the tradition of India's ancient scriptural literature, he himself is an avatara, incarnation of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Kapila's teachings are originally inscribed in the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavata Purana, one of the most important scriptural documents of Vedic theism. Within the Bhagavatam, Kapila's teachings comprise chapters 25 through 33 of the third canto. This book, Teaching of Lord Kapila, the son of Devhuti, is based on a unique series of lectures presented in Bombay, India in the spring of 1974 by His Divine Grace E.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In this series, Srila Prabhupada spoke from the 25th chapter, which contains the beginning of Lord Kapila's teaching. Sri Prabhupada is the author of a celebrated multi-volume translation and commentary on the entire text of the Bhagavatam, and at the time of the Kapila lectures he had already completed his written commentary on the section of the Bhagavatam dealing with Kapil Deva's teachings. In these special lectures, however, Srila Prabhupada went into significantly greater detail in elucidating the verses and shedding even broader light upon these fascinating teachings. The text begins with the word of Sonka, the foremost of the sages of Nami Saranya, the vastly learned sages to whom Srimad Bhagavatam was originally spoken some thousands of years ago. The sages have already heard about Lord Kapil from Sutta Goswami, an exalted spiritual master, and it is clear from Sonka's words that they accept Kapila Muni as being an incarnation of the Lord Himself and as therefore being the highest authority on yoga and transcendental knowledge. In recounting the history of Lord Kapila, Sutta Goswami, in accordance with Vedic principles for presenting spiritual knowledge, refers to discourse by great spiritual masters who have previously discussed the same subject. In this case, by great spiritual masters who have previously discussed the same subject. In this case, Sutta Goswami refers to a discussion between Vidura and the great sage Maitreya, who was a friend of Vyasadeva, the original compiler of the Vedic literature. As Sutta Goswami has already described, Lord Kapila appeared in this world as the son of Kardama Muni, a master of mystic yoga, and his wife Devhuti. Both Kardama Muni and Devhuti were aware of the divinity of their son. Indeed, even before Kapila's birth, Lord Brahma himself, the chief created person in this universe, had appeared before Devhuti and revealed to her that her son was to be an incarnation of the Supreme Lord and that this incarnation would enlighten her with spiritual knowledge. According to the Vedic social system, a man with a grown son may accept the order of sannyasa, thus renouncing all connections with his family and world life and entrust his wife to the care of his son. Kardama Muni, of course, knew that his son was an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, yet to honor this Vedic system and emphasize its importance, he too eventually accepted sannyasa, entrusting his wife Devhuti to the care of his divine son. Kapildeva, therefore, as Sutta Goswami begins to answer Sonka's request to hear further about Lord Kapildeva, the sages have already been informed of how Kardama Muni departed for the forest, leaving Kapildeva behind with Devhuti. After Kardama Muni's departure, Devhuti, remembering the prophetic words of Lord Brahma, approaches her divine son and humbly expresses her desire for spiritual enlightenment. My Lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Your Lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance because you are my transcendental I, which by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisance to you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter. Srimad Bhagavatam, pleased by his mother's pure desire for spiritual enlightenment and feeling great compassion for her, Kapila begins to speak on the Samkhya philosophy. Now, what is Samkhya? Insofar as Samkhya deals with the elemental categories or principles of the physical universe, Samkhya is what is Western scholars generally refer to as metaphysics. The term Samkhya literally means to count. This name is used because Samkhya philosophy enumerates principles of cosmic evolution by rational analysis. The etymological meaning of the word Sankhya is that which explains very lucidly by analysis of material elements. Philosophically, this term is used because the Sankhya system expounds analytical knowledge that enables one to distinguish between matter and spirit. This understanding culminates in bhakti, devotion for and service to the Supreme. It may be said, therefore, that Sankhya and Bhakti form two aspects of the same process, Bhakti being the ultimate goal or ultimate aspect of Sankhya. It is an interesting to note at this point that long after Lord Kapila's descent, an imitation Kapila appeared on the Indian subcontinent and propounded a non-theistic Sankhya, that which is generally studied as Sankhya in the contemporary academic context is actually this later non-theistic materialistic Sankhya. The Sankhya philosophy propounded by the original Kapila is practically unknown in the West. Teachings of Lord Kapila, the son of Devhuti, along with Srila Prabhupada's complete commentary on Kapila's Sankhya in his edition of Srimad Bhagavatam, is probably the first major exposition in the English language on the original theistic Sankhya. It should therefore be of considerable interest to scholars in this field, because the basic principle and ultimate goal of Lord Kapil Deva's Sankhya philosophy is bhakti. This is the subject with which Lord Kapil Deva begins his instructions to Devahuti. Consequently, because this volume teachings of Lord Kapila, the son of Devhuti, is Srila Prabhupada's commentary on the beginning of Lord Kapila's teachings. It is chiefly concerned with the science of Bhakti Yoga, the process of linking with God. Yoga means linking through Bhakti devotion. As the actual history begins, Devhuti approaches her son Kapila and with deep humility expresses her sincere desire for spiritual enlightenment. In response, Lord Kapila delineates the path of the transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization, concisely summarizing the actual process of self-realization. Kapila defines consciousness in both the conditioned and liberated states. He describes the psychology of pure consciousness, delineates the symptoms and characteristics of sadhu, holy person, and stresses the importance of sadhu sangha, association with those who are saintly. Kapil Deva then explains that liberation is merely a stage of preliminary to the attainment of bhakti, and that one who attains bhakti automatically achieves liberation. One who engages in bhakti devotional yoga automatically transcends transcends material desires and ultimately crosses beyond birth and death. According to later descriptions in Srimad Bhagavatam, Devhuti ultimately attains full enlightenment in transcendental knowledge by hearing and understanding the sublime philosophical teaching of her great son. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the ISKCON. Plate 1. Some hundreds of thousands of years ago, Lord Krishna appeared as Kapil Deva, the son of Devhuti and Kardama Muni. After Kapil Deva grew up, his father, according to the Vedic system, retired and left home to cultivate spiritual life. At that time, Devhuti approached Lord Kapil Deva and said, "My dear Kapila, I am very sick of the disturbance of my material sciences, for because of this sense disturbance, my lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. You have come as my son, but you are my guru, because you can inform me how I can cross the ocean of nescience, which is the material world. Your lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental I, which by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. You are the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, the origin and supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of ignorance of the universe. After hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions, and thus, his face smiling, he explained the path of Sankhya Yoga for the transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. Throughout the ages, Kapilavastu's Sankhya philosophy has stood the test of time, and today anyone can learn the facts about material nature, the soul, and the super soul by studying his teachings. Plate 2. Lord Krishna resides in his own abode Goloka Vrindavana in the spiritual world. But it is not that Krishna is simply in Goloka Vrindavana and nowhere else. Actually, he is everywhere. He is even within the atom as the Paramatma or Super Soul. The Super Soul has four hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a conch shell, and a club respectively. His mouth expresses his happiness, his eyes are spiritual like lotus petals, and his garments bedecked with valuable jewels are yellowish like the saffron of the Kadamba flower. His ornaments are all made of gold. He then sat with jewels and wears a glowing headdress and earrings. On his chest he wears the Kostumba jewel engraved with a beautiful calf. On his shoulders he wears other jewels, and around his neck he wears a garland of fresh flowers. About his waist he wears an ornamental wreath. On his fingers rings studded with valuable jewels. His leglets, his bangles, his wild hair curled with bluish tint, and his beautiful smiling face are all very pleasing. Plate 3. Lord Krishna is never alone in Goloka Vrindavana, his personal spiritual abode. Like a king with his retinue, he is always enjoying happiness in the company of his associates, especially his cowherd boyfriends and girlfriends, gopis. His mother and his father, when Krishna enters the forest with his elder brother Balrama, one gopi will say to another, "My dear friend, those eyes that see the beautiful faces of Krishna and Balarama are certainly fortunate." As these two sons of King Nanda enter the forest, surrounded by their friends and driving the cows before them, they glance lovingly upon the residents of Vrindavana. For those who have eyes, we think there is no greater object of vision. Plate 4. In the supreme spiritual abode of Goloka Vrindavana, Lord Krishna plays on his flute and is accompanied by his personified pleasure potency Srimati Radharani. Krishna is very fond of Radharani because she renders him the best service. Once Srimati Radharani revealed her mind to one of her gopi friends, "My dear friend, Krishna is my life and soul. Krishna is the treasure of my life. Indeed, Krishna is the very life of my life. I therefore keep him always in my heart and try to please him by rendering service. That is my constant meditation." Plate 5. Because our eyes and other senses are imperfect, we cannot see Lord Krishna present everywhere in his original spiritual form. But since Krishna is omnipotent, out of his mercy, He agrees to appear before us in a stone form called the Archa Vikaraha, the deity. Atheists think that the deity is merely an idol, but devotees know that the deity is Krishna himself. As seen here, deity worship in Vedic time was very opulent. The highly elevated Brahmanas would perform the bathing ceremony for the deities of Sri Radha Krishna with all paraphernalia, and then they would dress the deities with fine clothing, ornaments, fragrant flower garlands, and other paraphernalia for worship. Finally, with attention and devotion, a Brahmana would formally worship the deity as the assembled devotees sang songs glorifying the Lord and played musical instruments such as Shanais, kettle drums, and venas. Plate 6. In the beginning of creation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself in the form of the Purusha incarnation Mahavishnu lying in the causal ocean. Mahavishnu impregnates the living entity into material nature by glancing over his unmanifest material energy. Shown here as the goddess Durga, the word Durga means prison and Goddess Durga's function to see that all sinful souls are kept within the prison of this material world. For this purpose, Lord Krishna has given Durga so much power that she can create, maintain, and annihilate the cosmos. However, she cannot act independently of Krishna, for she is like his shadow. Plate 7. Long ago in the age of truth, Satya Yoga, Lord Krishna appeared as Kapilavastu to teach the eightfold mystic yoga process for self-realization. But this process is much too difficult for the fallen souls of the age called Kali Yuga. So just to give relief to the rotting, conditioned souls of this Kali Yuga, Lord Krishna appeared 500 years ago in his most material, merciful incarnation of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya taught the yoga process just suitable for the age of Kali. The process of Sankirtana, the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Here we see Lord Chaitanya instructing his intimate disciples about the glories of Sankirtana. Let there be all victory for the chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which can cleanse the mirror of the heart and stop the miseries of the blazing fire of material existence. The chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra in the waxing moon that spreads the white lotus of good fortune for all living entities. It is the life and soul of all education and expands the blissful ocean of transcendental life. It gives a cooling effect to everyone and enables everyone to taste full nectar at every step. So this is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Plate 8. The first step in all yoga systems, whether taught by Lord Kapila in the Srimad Bhagavat or by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, is to understand the distinction between the eternal spirit soul and the changing material body. In this diagram, part of the newly opened first American theistic exhibit in Los Angeles, we see a graphic presentation of Lord Krishna's first instruction in the Bhagavad Gita. As the embodied continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. Because we are conditioned by material nature, we are seeing only the changing body, but this is not our proper identity. We can understand that we are not the body. That is the beginning of self-realization. creation. This is shown old age and death. Plate 9. For material creation, Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumed the form of Mahavishnu who lies down in the causal ocean. While Mahavishnu sleeps in that ocean, millions of universes are generated as he exhales and annihilate when he inhales to create the diversities in each of these universes. Mahavishnu expands himself as Garbhakasai Vishnu, and Garbhodaskai Vishnu lies on the bed of the thousand-headed serpent Ananta Sesanaga and is always served by the goddess of fortune Lakshmi. From the navel of Garbhodaksai Vishnu grows a lotus flower which is the birthplace of Brahma, who is the supreme creator and manager of each universe. So this is shown Mahavishnu. Plate 10. In the conditioned state, the living entities are just like puppets in the hands of three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, which are in turn controlled by Lord Krishna. But the conditioned soul have forgotten their helplessness, as Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavadgita. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the doer of activities that are inactually carried out by the nature. The goal of the yoga system taught by Kapilava to his mother is to transcend the influence of the modes of nature and come to that state by which one is directly influenced by Lord Krishna himself. As Kapilava explains, the stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when the same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. Plate 11. Arjuna was a Vaishnava, a devotee of Lord Krishna, and because a Vaishnava's natural instinct is not to do harm to anyone, in the beginning Arjuna was unwilling to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra. However, when a Vaishnava knows that Krishna wants a particular thing done, he does not care for his own considerations. So, after Krishna had spoken the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna went forth into battle. The military strength of the Kauravas was invincible, like an insurmountable ocean. But because of Krishna's friendship, Arjuna, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Jayadratha, and Bahalika are directed their invincible weapons against Arjuna, but by Lord Krishna's grace they could not touch even a hair of his head. So the first video I end here, and the actual Lord Kapila's teachings will start with the video from video number 2. So thanks my dear friend, please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks a lot. Namaskar.